Welcome to the Captains at Center Ice podcast. As always, click that like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below on your opinions as well as what you thought about today's topics. Without further ado, let's bring the captains to center ice. Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of Captains at Center Ice podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Kestner, and today we have some interesting topics to talk about. And we are going to be talking about James Neal, Patrick Marleau, and not only that, but we're going to be talking about the undefeated teams left in the NHL. It is currently 10/12, October 12th, I should say, on a Saturday, that is. So, roughly about 2 weeks into the season, and everything is going pretty interestingly, actually, within the first 2 weeks. And we really want to discuss some of those topics. This is going to be more player-based this week due to the fact that there's some players that have kind of stuck out to us, and so because of that, we're gonna discuss it. So, again, with me, I have my friend Ryan Coast. Ryan, go ahead and say hi to everyone.
Hello, guys. Thank you for coming out to listen.
Yep, and we are going to be pretty much just jumping right into it. But before we do that, I do want to give a little bit of a warning. We are cutting these a little bit shorter. They were originally going to be cut for a little bit of an hour, maybe a little over that. But we have been deciding that we want to make these podcasts a little shorter for you. So they're going to be between about 30 and 50 minutes. And the reason for that is because we want you guys to be entertained. We want to make sure the topics are focused enough that we can hit only a couple topics, only the key ones that we need to talk about, and that way the topics aren't as bloated as normal. So that's our reasoning for it. Let us know if you like that format. If you feel like you want it longer, let us know down below. And as always, before we start, feel free to leave your comments down below on what you think. What you think of our opinions. What do you think of the topics? Is there anything that you wish we had talked about? That sort of thing. And leave a like, comment, and subscribe. So, without further ado, Ryan, let's jump right into it, shall we?
Yes.
So, there are 4 teams. 3 teams. There were 4 teams when I wrote this. There are 3 teams who are undefeated: Carolina, Edmonton, and Colorado. Now, Carolina and Edmonton are 5-0 currently, and Colorado is 3-0.
Who played tonight against Arizona?
Who played tonight against Arizona. Edmonton also played tonight. I'm gonna look to see if Carolina played. But while I do that, why are they all the way to the point of being undefeated? Because these teams are a little bit of a surprise, I would think, to most people. Well, maybe not Colorado, but I think Carolina and Edmonton fall into that surprise category. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this? And let us know, what do you feel? Why do you feel this is happening?
Carolina has really shocked the NHL world, I think, being able to beat 5 bona fide playoff potential teams, and that them being Tampa Bay, Montreal, Washington, and a couple other teams that are losing my mind at the moment. But all of them were 5 potential playoff teams, and it's kind of scary that they're picking off from what they did in the playoffs last year, and being able to just dominate the league, really.
Yeah, I think Carolina was actually a surprise for me. Last season I had them as a bubble team, but I picked them to be a dark horse team last season. I didn't pick that based on my playoff bracket, but I definitely did pick it based on like getting into the playoffs and whatnot. And Carolina has stepped up where they left off. The interesting thing is that they're this far and doing this well without Justin Williams, which I think is an interesting note. I think the coaching style of the Carolina system is outstanding for what it is. And for some reason, I mean, I thought they got better, but it was like slightly better. I was not sure that it was going to be enough to really make them that like dominant team in the Metropolitan Division. And clearly I was wrong on that. And right now they're absolutely dominating the Metropolitan
Well,
Division.
they did pick up Jake Gardner and they re-signed Sebastian Aho. So those are two great players to sign and get into the fold. And then and it's kind of shocking that they're undefeated with Peter Mrazek not doing as well as he was last year. Like I have him in fantasy and he hasn't been getting me many points. So I and take that as what you will, but at the same time it's just weird how this is unfolding.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely interesting. Um, let's move on to Edmonton here. So Edmonton's also a surprise to both of us. Ryan, what surprises you most about Edmonton?
Edmonton, the amount of changes that they went through in the offseason, just didn't think that they could pull off a winning streak like this in the opening season. I could see him picking 2 to 3 wins in a row, but not 4 to 5.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been kind of tough on Edmonton here, and I
Well, rightfully so. Look how many number one picks they've had and top 10 picks they've had, and they've wasted them.
yeah, yeah, I would agree. And not only that, it's been a struggle to get the team on board with a solid coach and a coaching system. So, Coach Tippett, I think is it's interesting. I haven't had a chance to really analyze his coaching style or his coaching system quite yet, but it seems like they're possessing the puck more. They're getting some good secondary scoring. Obviously, their key goal scorers are outstanding out, which we'll talk about. I think we'll talk about that later. But I feel like definitely a strong start for an Edmonton team, and offensively quite strong. Offensively quite strong, and the I think the biggest thing for me is defensively. How are they going to stand up? Because at the beginning of the season, I think it's fair to say that most teams are either trying to figure out their system or rework their system, and there are a few teams that end up dominating at the beginning of the season, and that doesn't necessarily translate into end of the season.
Question for you: do you think that Edmonton holds up this kind of winning, I guess, winning structure?
I
Best way to put it.
I think they're a top 3 team in the Pacific right now. Like, so if I were to put them in a playoff bracket, I would definitely put them in the number 1 or number 2 spot.
Do you
I
think it's
think
sustainable? Do you think they can hold this up?
yeah, I think they can. I think it's going to be tough, but I think they can. Uh they definitely have an interesting group of players, and we'll talk about this later with the addition of James Neal and their new goaltender Mike Smith. I guess the biggest question is long term defense. What happens when you play a team who is so strong offensively that's going to pick your defense apart? Because I've never really considered Edmonton's defense to be sound. So they're
I
strong offensively, and they've beaten some strong teams, but I'm not
I
sure. I'm not
I
sure
kind
where.
of want to counter the. I don't think they can sustain it because I think out of their 5 games, they've only played arguably 2 playoff teams: the New York Islanders and maybe the New York Rangers. Of their 5 games that they won, it's been Vancouver, the Kings, the Islanders, the Devils, and the Rangers. Only one of those 5 teams made the playoffs last year. So take that with a grain of salt, whatever, what have you with that kind of information. You can interpret it how you will.
Yeah, I
It's not what Carolina played. That was a much tougher schedule and more impressive.
yeah, I guess I'm still trying to I'm trying to gauge Edmonton. Is basically
Yeah,
what I think I'm trying to do here. I think Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl stay where they're at. My question marks still stand. Defensively and goaltending wise is their biggest issue. And secondary scoring, they seem to be getting it, but I guess the big question is, will that be sustained? You know what I
yeah,
mean? So, hot start to the season. Interesting to talk about the Edmonton Oilers being one of two teams who are 5-0. And then lastly, let's move on. Let's talk about another team who I think you will have a lot more thoughts on
yeah.
than I will because you've watched them. Is the Colorado Avalanche. They are 3-0 if I remember
You
correctly.
know, and so hopefully soon to be 4-0. Let's just hope. But they're playing the rookie goaltender in Pavel Francouz, so we'll see how he does in between the pipes and see how he does at the NHL level. But I find this one a little surprising in the fact that maybe I didn't I didn't see them pulling a come behind victory against the Boston Bruins, who rarely give up a 2 goal lead like they did against them. And so I kind of find it a little surprising, but not as surprising as Carolina or Edmonton.
Yeah, I feel like there's a strong pickup of where Colorado left off. And they definitely did have not disappointed when it comes to their offensive production. I am kind of surprised that they had that, like you said, a come from behind win against Boston, because Boston definitely does not. They're relatively defensively sound. Now, the one thing Boston is not is fast, and
Yeah.
Colorado definitely has speed and advantage on their side when it comes to that. And they have goal scoring on their side. I do feel like Boston definitely picks up at the end of the season. So we'll see if that changes, but it'll be interesting to see that. But I feel like definitely strong performance out of Colorado. What do you think of their new goaltender, Ryan?
With Gruby,
Yeah.
or I like him. Um, I wouldn't consider him new in the fact that he was our backup, but now that he has the starting job, I feel like he can sustain it. Though my concern is, can he sustain it for 60 games? He's never had that kind of workload, and when you pile on that workload, it's hard to condition for it, and it's hard to get your body ready for that kind of work. So I don't I'm hoping he had a strong offseason and said, this is my team, this is my net. Let me do as hard as work in the offseason as I can to prepare myself.
Yeah, I definitely will agree with you that it'll be interesting to see him play a full season because he's I'm not sure he's really been given that full responsibility of the team is on your shoulders in net. He's
And that's and that's the argument that people like fail to realize, like, that say he can't be a number one tender. When has he got been given the opportunity to be a number one? With Washington, he always was the backup to Holtby. So it's hard to say what he can actually do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting I think for sure to pay attention to that. I don't necessarily I guess he was sort of given it in Washington at one point, but not to the extent that was given that's given here. So
Exactly.
it'll be interesting to watch for sure. Do you think Colorado will be able to keep this up?
I actually do with them because what they can do really well is score. And and if you can put more points up at the end of regulation, you win the game. So that's where I see them really succeeding. And so I think they can sustain it. And Bettner has done a really good job with this young core and with the defensive core that he has now.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to watch. I definitely think that the Colorado Avalanche will be able to sustain this. Um, so I feel like out of all the teams that we saw, Carolina and Colorado are the two that are going to be able to sustain this. Would you agree?
I would agree. Um, but there's some extent to make an argument for Edmonton because of how weak the Pacific Division is, and that's the most opponents you play. So they're going to have somewhat of a lesser strength of schedule and could easily have more winnable games if you
Well,
want to look at it that way.
it's true. It's true. Let's also not forget the fact that Edmonton is definitely like they're. I mean, compare at some point they have to play all the other teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like so far Colorado and Carolina have shown me that they can play against the rest of the league.
Yeah,
Edmonton still has to do that. I mean, they beat a weak Rangers team
exactly.
defensively. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I would put them in that position quite yet. You know,
There's
everyone.
yeah, their strongest victory had to be the New York Islanders,
Yeah, I
and
would agree.
that was a 5-2 win, which was convincing. But they their strongest opponent is the New York Islanders, or no, the Washington Capitals. That's their strongest opponent.
Yeah,
So out of the 10 games that they play in October, two of them are really playoff teams. That's it.
yeah, I would agree with that. There's no reason to panic quite yet if you're a team facing the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe at the beginning of the season, I could see that. But yeah, I don't know. It just let your teams develop for the most
Exactly.
part,
And
and
it's early, these are early observations. So obviously Colorado isn't going to go 82 and 0.
right,
Carolina's not going to go 82 and 0 and Edmonton's not going to go 82 and 0. But of the three teams that can sustain at least a put high seed in the playoffs is probably Carolina and Colorado.
yeah, I would agree. If Edmonton came into the playoffs with the play that they're playing in, how would you consider them a threat? How would you see them?
I would I would consider them a threat because any team Connor McDavid can pull a rabbit out of a hat
True.
and when you have him on his team, I wouldn't count you out in any series. So I would count them as a threat just because of Connor McDavid.
Yeah, I would agree. My biggest question is defense in the playoffs wins games. Goaltending is still a question mark for me. I mean, I've seen Mike Smith play well, but
Mike Smith got lit up against the Colorado Avs.
yeah, I mean that's the thing is there were even I was watching the 3 minute highlights of the Rangers Oilers game before coming on to this podcast, and there were times that it was like the Rangers almost scored. Like they just didn't convert. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was obvious and it was a poor defensive breakdown. It I feel like you play a team like the St. Louis Blues and you're going to get some issues. You're going to have some issues to face. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much, but I was curious on
Mm-hmm.
your opinions on what happens to them and that. Speaking of Edmonton, let's transition here. There's a specific player we want to talk about. And for many of you, you're probably thinking Connor McDavid. No, we're going to talk about James Neal. James Neal has 7 goals in 5 games. And last season, he had 7 goals all of last season with Calgary. So, Ryan, let's start with you again. What are your thoughts on this? And why do you think this is happening?
You know, there's something to be said. The grass is greener on the other side, And Edmonton might not look like that greener side, but for him it could have been in being in a new city. And so that's where I kind of look like in a new system could have put him in better positions to score, unlike where Calgary he might have not been in the positions that he wanted to be in. So there's a lot of things to look at, and he could have had a great off season, and and I don't think he was it a trade that sent him to Calgary. I thought it was.
Yes, yes, it was a trade.
And so James Neal probably didn't want to be there in the first place. So I feel like he just felt like it's a new city, maybe it's a new career, you know?
Yeah, I definitely. It's interesting because we're watching Milan Lucic over in Calgary, who got traded for James Neal as a direct swap, and we're watching this kind of unfold. And Milan Lucic is struggling, like legitimately struggling, and so it'll be interesting to see what what goes down with James Neal. Do you attribute this success more to the coaching style of Edmonton, or do you attribute it more to the offensive prowess, if you will, of James Neal?
I would probably do coaching more or less because of his at he averaged 37 to 44 points every season besides what he did in Pittsburgh and then the opposite spectrum of what he did in Calgary. So I want to say it's more of coaching and where he's putting James Neal to be successful.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems to me that a lot of the goals that he's getting, he's in those dirty areas.
Hmm.
And he had a couple nice goals. He had a 4 goal night um, a couple games ago, but I I noticed that it wasn't like this off like Ovechkin style wrist shot that like went upper corner or anything like that. Most of them were dirty, gritty goals, I think. So interesting to see. Do you think? I mean, he didn't score in this against the Rangers earlier today, but do you think he'll be able to keep this up going into the season?
He's not going to average more goals per game than games played. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Um, I don't. Um, I could see him getting like a 50 to 65 point season, and that's what he did with Pittsburgh
right.
when he was there. So I could definitely see him doing that kind of production, but I don't see him doing almost 100-point seasons like that he's on pace for right now. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen either. And so I guess another question is, do you think Connor McDavid has anything to do with this?
Is he playing on that line? Is he
Well,
playing?
I think he's on that power play line. I don't. I'm
Let
not
me check.
quite sure if he's on that line. It looks like he's not. I He is +1.
No, he is on. He's actually on the second line with Nugent Hopkins.
Okay.
So I think I think it give I think it's not because of Connor McDavid. I think it's more of him just being in a better system that suits his game.
Yeah, I could see that.
That puts him in positions where he can succeed in.
Yeah, I would agree. I could 100% see that. I can 100% see that. And I would agree. I'm still trying to determine what the Oilers coaching system is. And so I don't know what is making James Neal tick. It seems like the Edmonton Oilers are playing a much more physical system, which benefits James Neal than what he was playing in Calgary. Calgary's a very there's something up about Calgary. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they
Calgary's more of a tiki taka as like a more pass and finesse team to me.
yeah, they
And
are.
and so that's where I don't think Neil Games strives in. I think he's more let's play physical hockey. Let me get in your face, play Pacific Division hockey.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that the Oilers are getting this grit into their lineup, and it'll be interesting to watch. I would agree with you on all points that you made. I think it's a coaching thing. I mean, James Neal has always been a threat on the ice, but last season he wasn't as strong as he needed to be. I thought he was actually one of the biggest threats on the ice when he was with Vegas, and the fact that they got rid of him in Vegas was interesting to me. Um, so yeah, that'll be interesting, and he thrived in that system. So, and that wasn't necessarily a physical, heavy hitting system either. That was a relatively big speed system, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, like big players playing a speed system. So it's interesting. I'm curious to know more to that. I'll be paying attention to James Neal for sure. Um, yeah. You have anything else to add about James Neal before we move on?
No, no, I think this transitioned well into Patrick Marleau and what he should be doing.
Yeah. So we're gonna. So next topic is Patrick Marleau, like he said. He has 2 goals already um, against the Chicago Blackhawks, and we're gonna talk about what his season is gonna be like and what we think of that. So I will start here. I think. Well, first of all, let me also add. Do you, if you think this was a good pickup for the San Jose Sharks? So think about that for a second, Ryan. Um, my opinion is that Patrick Marleau will be doing better in San Jose than he was in Toronto. I felt like he struggled in Toronto. He was a bigger player, older player, and slower player than what their system is built for right now. And because of that, he was a little bit out of place. Not as effective as he was, and for his age, I should say. And because of that, definitely not what I expected out of him. That being said, I think in San Jose he will definitely be the stronger player um, compared to what he was in Toronto. And obviously, by the 2 goals, he's off to a good start, right? I think San Jose did a strong, good job, I should say, not a strong job. They did a good job in bringing him back in. And it's important for him to come back in for good reason because he adds that leadership. He adds a little bit of offense. Maybe not the offensive prowess that they exactly wanted, but he knows the system. He knows how to play Sharks hockey. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit slower, and he fills some of their holes that they've been needing to fill offensively. And so yeah, I think it's a good pickup for the San Jose Sharks. I feel like he'll play better. It'll create the Sharks to play a little bit better, not a whole lot better, but I still think they're going to be a little bit better. And yeah, that's my thoughts of on Patrick Marleau. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Patrick Marleau?
You know, I struggled to identify why they thought they could use him. I thought it was a more of a novelty signing than anything. Because they had big Jumbo Thornton, and who is going to give you that third line grit, fourth line grit. So I mean, I just don't see him as a second or first line player, and that's where I think he has to be put because he's not going to grind it out on the third or fourth line. And and the only role I thought that he could be suited for was to replace the scoring void of Pavelski and Donskoy, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think he'll fulfill that role by any stretch of the imagination. I do think I could see him on the second line and the third line. I don't think he'll get on the fourth line. Uh, I don't think he has a problem with that because that's basically what he was doing in Toronto. That being said, I I don't know. I feel like it was a good move. It's more of a leadership move than anything, right?
Yeah, if we're looking at locker room and what it does for the locker room, then yes, totally agree. Great signing. Kudos to San Jose. But like, if you're looking at it from a scoring point, perspective, and points get you wins. When you think about it, it's just not he doesn't fill that void, and that's where I think they missed.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I the question is what will the Sharks do in the coming up into the trade deadline, which isn't until like March. But point is that they need to be looking at this now. Like, what players am I going to want to trade for, right? Because clearly the loss of Pavelski is a huge loss. And not only that, I mean, they lost other players as well, such as Donskoy. And it's putting a lot more weight on some other players who are struggling, who can score, but not at the rate that they need them to now. So, but that being said, Patrick Marleau definitely does not fill that role. He helps a little bit, I think. Uh, but yeah, I think it's a good move by San Jose. Not let me specify, not the best move. I don't think it's the best move by San Jose. They could have done better, but it's a good move
For the locker
for
room.
the locker room experience wise, and not only that, it keeps Patrick Marleau in the league.
Mm.
So that being said, I think that's basically my thoughts and opinions on Patrick Marleau. I, I don't have much more to say to that really.
Do you think? I mean, the goal is to be a Stanley Cup team, contention at least, and I just don't see the San Jose Sharks as a Stanley Cup team with the addition, or even if they didn't have Patrick Marleau.
Yeah. Going into the season, I was definitely I don't know. I've been skeptical of San Jose coming into the season. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, they're a Stanley Cup contending team." And this is my problem. On paper, they have been a Stanley Cup finalist team for years now. And they've had all these superstars and still couldn't get it done. And now that they've lost some of those stars, their ability to get to a Stanley Cup is like really small to me now. And not only that, their goaltending. I don't think Jones is that great of a goaltender.
It's showing that it looks like garbage right now.
Yeah,
Like not to be so crude about it, but it looks like I was listening to another podcast, and Aaron Dell seems to be like the better goaltender, and he's the backup.
yeah, I would agree. And not only that, my brother's a huge San Jose Sharks fan, and so he would tell you the same thing. Martin Jones was awful last season. Like one of the worst goaltenders in the league for a starting goaltender. He would get pulled in the first period consistently for the amount of goals that he let in. And I know there are possibly some Sharks fans out there who are going, well, they beat Chicago. Well, Chicago had a 3.55 goals against average last season, and they were second to last, the one of the worst teams in the league defensively. And this season doesn't look like it's any different.
No.
And because of that, I can't really give you a whole lot of credit for beating the Chicago Blackhawks. Um, Play some other teams who are stronger, and maybe I'll give you guys some credit. But right now, it's looking like out of the Pacific Division, their biggest rival out of that California team matchup is going to be Anaheim.
Yeah, that third spot is wide open. I think Calgary and
Edmonton.
Calgary and Vegas have
Oh.
locked up 1 and 2, but I think that third spot is wide open.
Well, see, here's my thing. I think the two teams that are pretty much locked up for a playoff spot are Vegas and Anaheim.
Really?
Yeah. I think they're the two teams that are going to play consistently based on their coaching styles from what I've seen. Granted, Anaheim is more. It's a new coaching style, but
Though,
they played solid against Pittsburgh already.
and they were before we decided at the time we decided on the topics, they were undefeated as well. So I'll give you credit there. I just saw Anaheim as a rebuilding team,
I did too. I
and
let me. I should also specify that when I made my playoff prediction, there's a reason I put them in a bubble spot because I didn't think their offensive production would be strong enough to get them into a playoff spot, into that top three. But now that you have San Jose, who's not in that spot, it makes it a little bit easier. Because I don't think San Jose out of the Pacific Division, right? I it's got to be Vegas. Maybe you can put Edmonton in that Pacific Division as well.
mm-hmm.
So because right now Edmonton's carrying that. So right now one is Edmonton, two is Anaheim, and three is Calgary. I think that third spot is open. Uh, but I don't know. I go back and forth on Calgary, and part of the reason is because Calgary is, uh, well, they just seem inconsistent sometimes,
Yeah,
and
and I don't know. I just don't see them repeating the year that they had last year.
I don't either. And not only that, there's just a little bit of a struggle offensively for them, in my
I don't
opinion.
think Riddick is the answer for them, and Mike Smith really carried that team, and I think they're going to miss his presence.
Yeah, I would agree. Uh, I 100% agree with that. I think
Because
they
I think that goalie combo that they had was a 1-1 punch, not a 1-2 punch, as in a 1-1-2, one being the back or starter, one second being the backup. I thought it was a 1-1 punch. Both of them could be number ones at a certain team.
Yeah, I would agree, and that's why I guess if you think of Vegas, they kind of have that just a one punch because um, they have Marc Andre Fleury.
Yeah.
I think Vegas has the better goaltending between those two teams. They have the better defense. They have the better offense. I just their system is better with Gerard Gallant. He's a better
Mm-hmm.
coach in my opinion. So there's less issues on the Vegas end. That's why I feel like I put them in that second or third spot. I'd be fine putting Anaheim in a third spot. I
That's where I would see them.
I mean I could see them going there. Definitely, let me specify. I don't think they're a first spot in the Pacific Division.
No.
They could do it, but it would require
I think
some
that's
things to
between
happen.
Vegas, Calgary from if we're going off last year's performances, and then possibly Edmonton if they can keep it up. I think those three teams are up for number one seed.
That's fair. And I mean, keep in mind I might be discrediting Calgary too much. You know what I mean? So,
But I
and
think a lot of people have figured out Johnny Gaudreau. I don't think he's going to do a 99 point season again.
yeah.
He gets really, really frustrated if you mess with his hands.
Yeah.
Like if you get him, if you like not not intentionally slash,
Right.
but but get your stick in there, he gets frustrated and gives up.
Yeah. Well, not only that, let's be honest here, right? I think a lot of people will automatically associate Johnny Gaudreau with Patrick Kane. However,
Okay.
let me specify this because I think this is important that a lot of people overlook. Patrick Kane can shoot the puck.
And
Like
he's more physical.
he not only is he well, he's bigger too, but uh, he's about 3 inches taller and a little bit heavier. But I will I will specify this. I think and Johnny Gaudreau deserves to be in the league. He's an all-star. He deserves to be in the league. So please, I'm not trying to discredit Johnny Gaudreau in this. But Johnny Gaudreau's role is not a role that Calgary needs right now. They need goal scoring. They don't need playmaking. The other thing is, I think that the type of playmaker he is compared to Patrick Kane is a little different. Patrick Kane somehow manages to rise whoever's on his line with him. That he manages to bring their skill level up so that they look like they're all stars too. And
That's a good point.
I have yet to see that consistently from Johnny Gaudreau for me to put that there, put him in that role too. Um, I mean, I like Artemi Panarin, But I think the best season that Artemi Panarin's ever had was when he was with Patrick Kane, and so that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't know. Calgary has some issues that they need to fill, and offense is one of them. They don't have a consistent goal scorer, and Milan Lucic definitely didn't fill that role. So
Well, to recap, I think we got a little off topic when
yeah,
we
we
started
did.
off with Power Check Marlowe, but let's just reiterate: we think it's a good signing for the locker room, but he's not going to fill the void that Pavelski and Donskoy left. So we'll leave you there with that, and then I'll leave it to you, Josh, to wrap it up.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So a little bit extra content at the end there, but it was relatively related. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Um, that being said, I hope you enjoy us talking hockey. Definitely enjoy having you guys come and watch. And yeah, I stay tuned. Another one next week, and yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add to that. As always, leave a comment down below, and yeah, I think we'll end it there. Ryan, do you have anything to add before we sign off?
Week 4 will bring new NHL stories that we'll be glad to cover. Just stay tuned and look out for those.
Yep, will do. Thanks, Ryan, and thank you all for watching. See you later. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. As always, like I said before, like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on what you thought about today's topics. Thank you for joining the Captains at Center Ice, and we'll see you in the next episode.